Back on the driver's side, we have already taken the axle out and all the other stuff we did on the passenger side. And on the axle on the driver's side, you will have to pry it out. You can use a pry bar, a straight screwdriver. I used a thick screwdriver, and it gets up in there a lot better than a curved tip pry bar. But in case you're wondering, the drain plug is right there, and they tend to be extremely tight. I did get that one loose and all that stuff, but as you can see, I took the lines off. Those are 17s, and each one of them has a 10 millimeter that holds it onto the transmission. But once I took it off, I just threaded them back into the transmission just so I don't lose them, and I can swap them over from this one to the new one. And also there's a bracket that bolts right here. It's two 14 millimeters on top and two that go through the bottom. There's some openings in there. What did I do with it? This is what that bracket looks like. Like I said, it's got two nuts on the bottom and two bolts that go through the bracket itself into the transmission, and they go on right there. It's pretty much just like that one, and that's going to be two 14 millimeters as well. And then underneath there's two little holes right here, and you can go in with the 14 millimeter and get those out. But we have a drain pan underneath here catching whatever dripping now. It's still dripping pretty good because of the lines, but I did drain it prior. And next thing we're going to try to do is I'm going to take this bracket off right here. Then I'm going to break the steering knuckle loose from the shaft inside. I do believe you have to do this from inside the car, and it's underneath the dash in there. And I'm believing it's a 10 millimeter, but whenever I get in there, I'll show you what it looks like inside. I'm going to try to showcase that in the video. But now what we're going to do before we go inside though is I'm going to go ahead and take the torque converter bolts off of this and take the lower bell housing bolts off as well, except for one of them. I'm going to leave one in there just because when we lower this cross member, the transmission will try to separate itself, and I don't want to do that until I have a transmission jack under it. So we're under the car now. Here's the bell housing bolts right there. Like I said, there's 4 of them right here, and I do believe there's one on each side above these. And then here's the cover for the actual torque converter bolts. You're going to take this 10 millimeter out right here. This cover will come out, and then there should be 8 10 millimeter bolts that holds the torque converter in to the flywheel. But what I'm going to do now is go ahead and take this cover out, go ahead and break the torque converter bolts loose, and I'll show you what those look like. And like I said, these are 17 millimeters on the head of the bolts for the bell housing. But let me break all this stuff loose and I'll be right back. Here are the bell housing and torque converter bolts. Like I said, the bell housing bolts are 17 millimeters and the torque converter bolts are 10 millimeters. Here's the cover out of it. I'm going to set that with it. So there's the flywheel right there. As you can see, it gives you a good little size window to go through, and I took all the bolts out of the bell housing. There's 2 more holding it in right now, but I really can't get to those until I take the K member out, or cross member. And once we get that out, we will start lowering this down, and we got to do the motor mounts right here. And this motor mount has a sensor to it. I've already disconnected it, but it does have a sensor on the front one. There should be one on the back, and we'll take the other mount out on the transmission up here, that little one like I showed you. I haven't taken it out yet, but we'll take that one off, and then we'll lower it down and start getting stuff on the inside. Back up on top, what we're going to need to do is take this hose right here off, because it runs down to the actual steering rack, and this goes to your power steering pump right here. It's just these 2 10 millimeters, and you can take those out and just lift it up, and it'll come down with the cross member. And the motor mount that I was talking about is right there. This is the bolt that you need to take out right there, and you can take that out. And then there's one on the back. It's going to be a little hard to show that one, as I may have to get that one from underneath. It's just real tight either way you go, but we're going to have to take both of them out either way. But we're going to take that bolt out, this power steering line, and then let me see if I can put you in here where you can see it. I'm not going to get a good view of it, but there's one on the back. It looks pretty much identical to the front one, and it just has a bolt going through the middle of it too. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this and that and try to take the back one out as well, and then I'll be right back. As you can see, I have my engine support stand in place. It wasn't long enough to go from fender to fender, so I had to put a 2x4 to help hold it. And these 2x4s are plenty strong enough. It's not going to break or anything, because these engines, they don't weigh 1,000 pounds or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about it breaking the 2x4. But I just used a chain on this right here, and it's got tension on it, and it's holding pretty good. I've already lifted it up probably ½ an inch or so just to make sure that the tension is off of it. And this does have 2 spots right here, and you can attach one down there if you would like, but you shouldn't have to, because it does have the motor mount on the back, and we are attached on the center of the engine at the intake. But my next step is to climb underneath and start taking the bolts out of the cross member. So what I'm going to do now is climb underneath there and show you where they're at. So on the front, you're going to have this one bolt right here and these 2 little ones right there, and take these out first before taking that one out, because if it decides to drop, you will bend this bracket, and that's there for support. It goes along the front radiator support section on the bottom of the engine, but it's like that on both sides of this cross member. As you can see, there's the other side. Alright, so I did have to drop the exhaust on here, and as you can see, I got both of them off of the manifolds up there, but I don't know how well you can see those bolts are completely rusted. And rather than stripping those out and breaking them, I'm probably about to hit a nerve with a few people on this right here, but I have the capabilities, and it's quicker for me to do this than it would be to actually take the time to take those bolts out. Probably have to knock them out, rethread them, or any of that stuff. I'm going to cut the exhaust off right here, right before the catalytic converter. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to weld it back up once I get to that point. But I can weld it up a lot quicker than I can if I was to try to repair those bolts. And if anybody was to ask me what I would do in this situation, I'd give them that exact answer 100 times over. So like I said, I know I'm going to get some hate comments for this, and probably get some nasty thumbs down for this, but you know what? I'm going to do what I can for this customer, because this right here is just his little tow vehicle to tow his lawnmowers around for his side business. But like I said, I'm going to cut these off right here in just a second, and I'm going to actually film me doing it. Alright, here we go. There we are. And once I get back to this point, I can actually put this back up, and I can weld that back together, and there will be no issue at all with that. But I will clean this out before I put it in there, just so none of the metal shavings go into the catalytic converter. Alright, so we got the cross member out, and we're at the point where we're about to drop the transmission. As you can see, I have my transmission jack under it, and I got it up, and it's got a little tension on it. I just took the last transmission bolt out, and I had to take the motor mount out, but it was right up in here. and all of them are out now. The torque converter is loose, and now we're just ready to pull it out. So here it is, we have it out, and I do have to change this solenoid from this one to the other one because the other one broke the connector on it. But I'm gonna wait till I put it in before I actually install it, because I don't want to take the chance of actually damaging this one putting it back in, because you could hit it off the side wall of the engine compartment, and we don't want to do that. I don't want to have to buy a new one of these, because I'd hate to see what they cost. But like I said, this is it. This will probably be a multi-video series, because this is a long process. It calls for like 10 to 12 hours to remove this, depending on if you have a four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or front-wheel drive. And do one video of a 10-hour process is a pretty good, you know, accomplishment if you can do it. But I've just been showing y'all like the quick stuff on it. But this is probably in this video, and if y'all have any comments, concerns, or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll get to them as quick as I can. And until next time, y'all have a great day.